Welcome to the Deep Dive, brought to you by BookCast FM. We're all about bringing books to life one cast at a time. Today we are jumping into a truly foundational text for anyone involved in building something new, The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. This book, honestly, it's become almost like an operating system for dealing with the chaos of innovation, especially when you're launching something, a product, a feature, maybe a whole company, and you genuinely don't know if anyone will care. Ries offers a toolkit for that.
He really does. And what makes the lean startup so, well, revolutionary, I think, is that it frames entrepreneurship as a management discipline. It's not just about some innate vision or, getting lucky. It pushes back against that traditional build it and they will come or launch and pray model. Instead, it gives you a systematic, almost scientific way to approach things. It's all built on continuous innovation, really rapid experimentation, and crucially tight customer feedback loops.
Turning guesswork into actual data.
Exactly.
So our mission today is basically to give you the essential guide to this whole methodology. We want to unpack the core ideas, the mechanics that really redefine what success looks like in a startup. And we have to start with the central engine, right? The build, measure, learn, feedback loop. Okay, first things first. Let's nail down the definition of a startup. Rackus really pushes back on the idea that it's about, company size or being in a garage. He defines it as a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty.
And that phrase, extreme uncertainty, that's absolutely the key. It signals that a startup operates in a fundamentally different environment than a big, established company. Think about it, a traditional 5-year business plan. It's kind of useless in this context because it's built entirely on guesses, on assumptions you haven't actually tested.
Yeah.
So the entrepreneur's real job isn't just coding or building, it's managing that uncertainty, systematically reducing it.
Which leads directly to this idea of a new way to measure progress, doesn't it? Not features shipped, but validated learning.
Precisely. The goal isn't just to build something, it's to learn what customers actually want. And you measure that learning through real customer behavior, not just, positive survey responses or focus groups. Reese's has that great quote, "The only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else." It's about the speed of learning.
Okay, but let's be real. This bumps up against vanity metrics. We've all seen it, maybe even done it celebrating those big flashy numbers. Total downloads, page views, registered users.
Oh, absolutely. They feel so good.
Right, but often they mean absolutely nothing for the actual health of the business.
Yeah.
How do you get founders, and maybe more importantly their investors, to look past those tempting, often misleading numbers?
Well, that's where the discipline comes in, and honestly, where ego can get in the way. Vanity metrics provide a false sense of progress, a security blanket. Reese talks about his own experience at IMVU. They spent months building features, celebrating download numbers that looked great on paper, only to find out later that those users weren't sticking around. They weren't engaged. They weren't coming back. They built output the product, but they hadn't actually made progress in terms of validated learning.
And the cost of that. Not just financial, but the time, the effort, building something people don't retain.
Yeah.
That's massive waste.
Exactly. That is the waste Reese is talking about.
So if waste is the enemy, then the build, measure, learn loop is the weapon. It forces that discipline you mentioned. Can you walk us through the mechanics of that cycle? How does it specifically help avoid that kind of waste?
Sure. It's designed to be as tight, as fast a cycle as possible. First you build, but you don't build the whole vision. You build a minimum viable product, an MVP. And crucially, it's built specifically to test a core hypothesis about your customers or your market. Second, you measure. You put the MVP out there and gather real data on how customers react. But not just any data actionable metrics, stuff that connects cause, like a product change you made, to effect, like a change in user behavior. And third, you learn. You analyze that data. Do the results support your initial hypothesis? This learning then informs your next step. Do you persevere with the current direction, or do you need to make a significant change, a pivot?
So the key takeaway here, maybe the first big one for you listening, waste in a startup isn't just inefficient code or misspent marketing dollars. The biggest waste is pouring your time, talent, and resources into building features or even entire products that nobody actually needs or wants.
Okay, so if part one was about the vision and defining progress, part two is about how you actually steer the ship using data, how you navigate that uncertainty. This starts with identifying your leap of faith assumptions. These are the absolutely critical yet unproven beliefs your entire business idea rests on.
The things that have to be true for this whole venture to work.
Exactly. And you have to test these first. Because if these core assumptions are wrong, everything else you build on top of them is essentially waste.
So what are the most critical assumptions typically?
Ries boils them down to two fundamental hypotheses. First, the value hypothesis. Does your product or service actually deliver real, measurable value to customers once they start using it? Does it genuinely solve a problem they have or fulfill a need?
Okay, does it work? Do they care?
Pretty much.
Mm.
And second, the growth hypothesis. How will new customers discover your product? Is that discovery mechanism scalable? Is it sustainable in the long run?
That value hypothesis often seems like the trickiest one, right? Because proving value might seem like it requires building the whole complex thing first.
That's the common trap. But this is where the elegance of the MVP really comes in. Let's talk about Zappos. That's become the classic example.
Ah, yes. Selling shoes online, back when that seemed crazy.
Right. Founder Nick Swinmurne's huge leap of faith assumption was just that. Will people actually buy shoes online without trying them on?
Seems obvious now, but back then.
Totally unknown.
Mm.
So instead of doing the traditional thing, building a massive website, securing inventory, setting up warehouses, complex logistics, spending millions,
He did what?
he used what Ries calls a concierge MVP. It was incredibly lo-fi. He went to local shoe stores, took photos of their shoes, and put those photos up on a very simple website.
Okay.
When an order came in, if an order came in, he would physically go back to the store, buy the shoes at retail price, and then ship them himself to the customer.
Wow. So he was the entire fulfillment system. Manual, awkward.
Totally unscalable. But here's the genius. It cost almost nothing. And it definitively proved the core value hypothesis. People were willing to buy shoes online. He got that validated learning before writing a single line of code for a complex system or asking VCs for money based on a guess.
That's it right there, learning in action.
And that perfectly illustrates the purpose of the MVP. Ries defines it as that version of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about customers with the least effort. It's a tool for learning, primarily. Not really a prototype in the traditional sense.
And there are different ways to do this MVP thing, right? Not just being a concierge.
Oh, loads. You've got the concierge method like Zappos. There's smoke tests, basically advertising a product that doesn't exist yet to gauge interest. The famous Dropbox explainer video is a prime example of that.
Right. They showed the idea and got massive signups before building the complex tech.
Exactly. Then there's the Wizard of Oz MVP, where you create the illusion of an automated system, but behind the scenes, a human is actually doing the work. Again, the point isn't the elegance of the solution, it's the speed of learning. Did people use it? Did it solve their problem?
Okay, so you're running these experiments, testing these assumptions. How do you track if you're actually making progress, not just spinning your wheels or getting fooled by those vanity metrics again?
That's where innovation accounting comes in. It's a framework for measuring progress in a startup context. Moving beyond just tracking output or those misleading vanity numbers, we need actionable metrics.
And the gold standard for actionable metrics here is cohort analysis, right? Can you break that down a bit? It sounds technical, but the concept seems really powerful.
It is powerful and, yeah, less complex than it sounds. Instead of just looking at your total number of users over time, which can hide problems, you track specific groups or cohorts of users who all started using your product around the same time.
Like everyone who signed up in January is one group, everyone in February is another.
Exactly. Think of it like vintages of wine. So let's say you make a significant change to your product in March. Maybe you improve the onboarding flow. You then track the behavior of the March cohort, their retention rate, their engagement levels, and compare it to the February cohort and the January cohort.
Ah, so if the March group sticks around longer or uses the key features more,
then you have evidence that your change caused that improvement. It establishes that cause and effect link, which total user numbers can't do. It shows your tuning efforts are actually moving the needle towards a sustainable business.
Okay, so innovation accounting uses this cohort data to track progress through, what, 3 stages?
Right. 3 milestones. First, you use your initial MVP experiments to establish a baseline. What are your current conversion rates, retention rates, etc., with these early cohorts? Second, you systematically try to tune the engine. You make targeted changes to the product or marketing based on hypotheses, and you measure if those changes improve the metrics for subsequent cohorts compared to the baseline. And third, based on that data, you face the big decision: pivot or persevere. If your tuning efforts are consistently improving the key metrics, moving you towards your business goals, you persevere. But if the data shows you're stuck, or the metrics aren't improving despite your best efforts, you need to pivot.
Pivot. That word still sounds like failure to a lot of people, like admitting your original idea was wrong. How do you frame that decision so it's less emotional, more strategic?
By grounding it firmly in the data from your innovation accounting. A pivot isn't giving up. It's a structured, deliberate course correction based on validated learning. It's an act of intellectual honesty, acknowledging that one or more of your core assumptions were wrong. Think about audio. They were initially building a podcasting platform, but the data, the market context, Apple entering the space, told them it wasn't going to work as planned.
So they pivoted.
They pivoted hard based on a small internal side project into what eventually became Twitter.
Right.
That wasn't failure. It was recognizing reality and making a strategic shift based on what they learned.
Okay, and pivots aren't just one thing, right? There are different types.
Yeah, Rades outlines several patterns. For example, a zoom-in pivot. This is where you realize one particular feature of your bigger product is actually the thing customers value most. So you pivot to make that single feature the entire product, cutting away the rest.
Focusing resources.
Exactly. Or there's an engine of growth pivot. Maybe you started assuming viral growth would work, but the data shows it's not happening. You might pivot to focus on a paid acquisition strategy, or maybe a sticky engagement model instead. It's about changing the fundamental way you plan to grow, based on evidence. All right, so once you've used the build, measure, learn loop in innovation accounting to validate your core hypotheses you've found product market fit, essentially the focus shifts. Now it's about how you accelerate that loop, how you scale the learning and the business efficiently. And here, Ries borrows a really powerful concept from lean manufacturing, the idea of working in small batches.
Right, this counters the traditional software development model, which often involves planning huge, complex feature releases maybe every 6 months, or even annually, like building up a giant batch of inventory in manufacturing.
Exactly. And just like in manufacturing, where large batches mean defects might not be discovered for ages, hiding problems until it's too late.
In software, large batches mean you might wait 6 months, invest massive resources, only to finally launch and discover customers hate it, or it's full of bugs, or the market's shifted. That's catastrophic waste again.
It is. The lean approach flips this entirely. The principle is, the smaller the batch, the sooner you get feedback, and therefore the faster you learn.
Okay. But I think for a lot of people listening, the idea of releasing changes constantly, Ries talks about his team at IMVU deploying updates up to 50 times a day. That sounds like absolute chaos. How do you maintain quality? Doesn't that risk breaking things all the time?
It definitely sounds counterintuitive, I get that. But the logic is actually the opposite. Think about it. If you push out one tiny change and something breaks, what caused it?
Well, obviously that one tiny change.
Right. You know immediately where the problem is, and you can roll it back instantly, fix it, and redeploy quickly.
Yeah.
The blast radiuses of the error is tiny.
Ah, okay. Whereas if you deploy one massive update with 50 new features intertwined.
And something breaks. Good luck figuring out which part caused the crash. It could take days, even weeks to diagnose and fix, causing much more disruption and wasting far more time. So small batches and continuous deployment actually reduce risk and improve quality over time by shortening that feedback loop dramatically.
Makes sense when you put it that way. Faster learning, faster fixing.
And that accelerated learning process directly fuels sustainable growth. Regis is very clear on this. Real durable growth doesn't usually come from one-off marketing stunts or getting lucky with PR. Sustainable growth happens when new customers consistently arrive as a direct result of the actions of your past customers. There's a feedback loop in the growth itself.
And you need to understand which type of growth engine you're building and optimize for it, right? He outlined 3 main ones.
Correct, the 3 engines of growth. First, there's the sticky engine. This is all about customer retention and engagement. Your goal is to get users hooked on the value you provide so they stick around for a long time.
So the key metric there would be like churn rate, keeping it super low.
Exactly. Low churn, high engagement. You grow by adding new customers faster than you lose old ones, and by keeping the existing ones deeply engaged.
Okay, second engine.
The viral engine. This relies on customers bringing in more customers, essentially through word of mouth or built-in referral mechanisms. Think social networks or products with inherent network effects.
And the key metric there is the viral coefficient.
Yep. You need your viral coefficient to be greater than 1, meaning each existing user, on average, brings in more than one new user. That creates exponential growth, at least in theory.
And the third?
The paid engine. This is growth driven by paid advertising, sales teams, etc. You spend money to acquire customers.
Simple enough, but the crucial part here is profitability, isn't it?
Absolutely critical.
Right.
The core metric for the paid engine is ensuring that the lifetime value, LTV, of a customer, the total profit you expect to make from them over their entire relationship with you, is significantly greater than the customer acquisition cost. It's how much you spent to get them in the door.
LTV CAC. Sounds straightforward, but hang on. Calculating CAC might be relatively easy. You know what you spent on ads. But calculating LTV, especially for a new product with limited history, that seems like another one of those leap of faith assumptions, doesn't it? How can you reliably know the LTV early on?
That's a really sharp point, and it highlights the subtlety. You don't know it reliably at first. The lean startup approach isn't about having perfect foresight. It's about recognizing that your LTV calculation is a hypothesis. So you make your best initial estimate based on early data or maybe competitor benchmarks. But then you have to treat validating and refining that LTV prediction as one of your most crucial ongoing experiments. You use cohort analysis to track actual retention, engagement, and monetization over time to see if your LTV assumption holds up.
So it's not a static number you plug into a spreadsheet once. It's something you constantly measure and learn about.
Exactly. You have to approach it with the same experimental rigor as testing a new feature. If your LTV isn't panning out as expected, that might trigger a need to tune the engine or even pivot your business model or target customer.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, finally, this whole lean startup philosophy. It started very much in the tech startup world, but it's not just for, two founders in a garage anymore, is it? How does this apply inside bigger, established companies?
That's a huge part of the later chapters and the impact of the book. Many large organizations fail to innovate, not because they lack resources, but because their internal processes, bureaucracy, and fear of failure stifle experimentation. They keep building the wrong things, just on a bigger scale.
So they drown in possibilities or stick rigidly to flawed plans.
Right. But Ries shows how these principles, rapid iteration, validated learning, innovation accounting, small batches, can be adopted within large companies to foster internal innovation.
You see examples like Intuit creating innovation catalysts or GE's FastWorks program, right? They essentially created protected spaces for internal teams to act like startups.
Absolutely. They give these teams autonomy, allow them to run small experiments, measure results rigorously using actionable metrics, and pivot quickly without needing layers of approval for every little decision. It proves that this mindset, this disciplined approach to managing uncertainty, can work across the entire spectrum of business, from startup to enterprise. #outro. So when you boil it all down, the entire framework, all these tools and techniques, they circle back to one core principle, almost a moral philosophy for building things. Eliminate waste. And the biggest, most tragic waste in the world of innovation is spending precious time, money, and human talent building something that ultimately nobody wants or uses.
That's the enemy.
That's the enemy. And validated learning is the cure. It's the process that ensures your efforts, your resources are directed towards creating real value, making actual progress, not just staying busy.
So, for you, the listener, thinking about your own projects or ventures, what's the big takeaway here?
I think Ries fundamentally reframes the central question. For decades, especially in tech, the focus was often on the engineering challenge. Can this technically be built? Ries forces a shift. The crucial question now, the first question you should ask is, should it be built? Is there validated evidence that customers want this, that it solves a real problem, that it can form the basis of a sustainable business?
Asking that question first changes absolutely everything about how you approach innovation.
It really does. Well, we hope this deep dive into the lean startup has given you some clear, actionable ideas you can apply. If these concepts resonated, we strongly encourage you to grab a copy of the book itself to get the full depth and nuance from Eric Ries. Supporting the author is always a good thing, and you'll find a link in our description. This has been BookCast FM, bringing books to life one cast at a time. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.